Hey everyone, I'm Chelsea from the Build Book support team, and today we're going to go over working with dependencies. So to recap really quickly, dependencies are created within the project schedule, and this is the only time you'll be able to create dependencies or see the Gantt chart that shows dependencies. So really quickly, what are dependencies? Dependencies are the ability to create relationships between items so that if one item moves, the other item moves with it or along in the track process. So for instance, on my schedule right here, you'll notice that I have a dependency between call for fireplace and call for gas and electric, essentially saying that I need this particular task to end before I can call for the gas and electric. Maybe I need to see how big the fireplace is going to be, what type of fireplace is going to be, and then I can call for the gas and electric once I know a little bit more about the fireplace here. Now, of course, with the dependencies, they also allow you to move items back on your schedule really easily and nicely so that you can move whole groups of items rather than having to drag and drop every single item to push back entire schedules. To start really quickly, um, in order to work with dependencies effectively, you're going to want to select which option you want to use. So in order to do that, you're going to click on the ellipsis menu in the top right corner of the schedule and click on Schedule Options. This is going to allow you to choose which dependency rules or behaviors you want to use. The difference between the behaviors is going to be the set of rules that are involved with those particular behaviors. And one of the things I like to start off with saying is that your schedule is not meant to move back and forth between these different behaviors. So if you're interested in finding out more about how each behavior works or functions, or which one you personally like the best, then what I would suggest is creating a project off of just one of these first. The default is always going to be the fix mode. And then from there, creating templates of those projects to try the other modes. The reason why they're not meant to work in tandem or be able to switch back and forth on the projects is because, again, these are a specific set of rules that tell you how your dependencies react between each other. So, for example, auto mode is really like the traditional Gantt chart mode. It's essentially going to reschedule any of the items that are successors once a predecessor task is moved. So if a predecessor task is moved forward in time to push the schedule back a few weeks, then essentially what it's going to do is it's going to reschedule all of the successors on down the line so that it pushes back a few weeks. Now, one of the things that the auto mode is not designed to do is if you move the project forward in time, it's not meant to take anything that had negative lag on it and move that up and forward in time as well. The biggest reason for that is because this mode is essentially designed to say that task A has to end, just has to end before task B can begin. It doesn't matter when task B begins, it just can't begin before task A ends. And of course, we have some overrides for you that allow you to overlap items, but this is, like I said, the more traditional Gantt chart version of what our schedule actually is using. As you can see, I have this as my current mode for this particular schedule. But if I wanted to, I could switch it to fixed mode. Now, again, if I did that in this particular schedule right now, it would definitely create an issue with the schedule. And that's because the fixed mode is a little bit different. Essentially, moving an item with dependencies in the fixed mode is going to maintain the space or the lag between all of the successors. So basically, what it's supposed to do is it's supposed to allow you to easily move your schedule as a larger group rather than essentially moving items within and of themselves. So if you move an activity forward, any of the successors connected back behind that activity are going to essentially move along with it. So you'll see how this kind of lag is like keeping its lag time, even though we're reducing the lag right here. That is designed to be exactly how fixed mode works. Whereas, of course, with the auto mode, once I move this particular type of thing, it's designed to move this dependency forward as well. And then you'll notice when it moves back, it doesn't move that dependency back. It elongates the time in between. Whereas the fixed, of course, You can move this dependency back, but it will always maintain the lag in between right here. Now, as always, just like auto mode has a bit of a caveat to it, so does fixed mode. So if you have non-working days in your schedule, fixed mode, it could behave a little bit differently than what you're expecting when you're moving dependencies. Fixed mode is designed to always maintain the lag between items. So again, this particular time frame in between items, when things are shifted forward or backward. But it is also designed to maintain, or it's not designed to maintain the lag when there are multiple recalculations being done because of working days. So you'll notice down here that you can set your working days and you can check off days that you are not currently working. And if that's the case, then fixed mode is going to be a little bit more difficult for you if you have a larger schedule, because the amount of time that it's going to have to essentially recalculate things for non-working days, you'll actually start to see condensed items within your schedule, because it's having to essentially try to recalculate those all the time. Whereas with auto mode, you don't really have that problem. It gets rid of that problem for you. And then, of course, we have our ignore mode down here, which essentially says that it's not going to maintain lag between any of the items. You can literally move an item to wherever you want to at any point in time on the schedule, and it's going to ignore all of the dependencies. We don't have many pros who use this particularly because this is literally creating dependencies between items and then ignoring that dependency. So it's nice if you have things that you have to manually schedule, or if you manually schedule things a lot. But ignore mode is not usually used by most of our pros at any point in time because it doesn't really react super well based on creating dependencies between items. So as you'll see, I have my current mode as auto mode. If I ever wanted to change these, I could reselect those modes and then click on Save Calendar Settings. But I like the auto mode because I feel like it gives me the most amount of control. So for instance, like I said, auto mode is designed to essentially create space in between items. So what you'll notice is that the traditional auto mode, it will butt up tasks against each other. So think of this as task A, this is task B. If I move task A back, it's going to move task B back. And if I move task A forward, it's not going to move task B back. And again, that's because the rule says that task B just has to begin once task A is over with. It doesn't matter when task A ends because task B can start anytime after that. So that's one of the things that some people get thrown off with auto mode. But again, I personally like auto mode because I can really easily reset that by just clicking on auto schedule and all successors so that it moves that back to butt up to it. Now, one of the other things that you'll notice is that I have a task right here that is overlapped. And the only time I can essentially overlap that task is by creating the dependency between the items and then adding in this minimum lag time right here. So if I add in a negative minimum lag time, that will essentially allow me to click and drag the task to overlap with this one. So I can click and drag it here. I can click and drag it here because that's up to 2 days negative time. But if I open this and I remove that lag right here, so I put it as 0, you're going to notice that it automatically butts that task back up here and that I'm not able to overlap the tasks in any way. So that's one of the caveats again about the auto schedule is that a lot of people have a little bit of trouble with understanding is that this design is essentially designed to work like a traditional Gantt chart, although we have given you these overrides in order to create lag or minimum lag or negative lag, essentially. One of the other things that you'll notice again is that as I added in that negative lag, unlike the positive lag or when I took it away, it moved this task, but with negative lag, it does not, and it's not designed to. And again, the reason for that is because the particular rules of this schedule says that call, gas, and electric just has to end before the tree removal. So if I wanted to, I could overlap them together like that by dragging the task backward. But otherwise, It's not designed to do that for me right off the bat automatically. And again, it's because call gas and electric just has to end before tree removal can technically begin. It doesn't matter when tree removal begins. And then of course, you'll notice that it left a little bit of lag there too. So again, I can use the exact same auto schedule, all successors to move that task back, or I can move it out further if I wanted to. I'm just not able to overlap the tasks like so, like that. Now, how do you create a dependency? There are a couple ways that you can do this. So you can either create a dependency by opening an item, clicking on the successors or predecessors and adding successors or predecessors. Now, one of the things that you'll notice is if I click on add more right here, I'm not going to be able to add this call roofers and SAM. So one of the things that I'm not able to do is I'm not able to create what's called circular dependencies on my schedule. What that means is I'm not able to create an item or move an item that is already a successor to also be a predecessor of a particular task that is a predecessor. Essentially saying I'm not able to create a circular dependency between the tasks so that they're all kind of grouped together like that. And the reason being is because once you create circular dependencies, the calendar can't tell what you're actually trying to set this due date as. So what ends up happening is you have these tasks or these items that start getting pushed out into oblivion because the calendar is trying to figure out what is actually happening. So again, you can add a dependency that way, or you can create dependencies at any point in time within each other on the Gantt chart. So one of my favorite things to do when I'm working on the Gantt chart is I actually like to really quickly and easily create my dependencies by clicking and holding on the rightmost circle right here and dragging that to an option that allows me to create that dependency. And you'll know that that's an option for you because it will say valid really quickly. Whereas if it wasn't an option, like I tried to, add it to something over in here or something like that, it'll essentially say invalid, just like it's doing right now. But otherwise, I can click and hold on this dependency to create it. And then again, if I need to make adjustments to the specific lag time because I want this to actually go back and overlap, all I have to do is open up the item and then create the dependency here by adding in that negative lag right there. And then of course, because this is the auto schedule, I'll usually have to move that back, or as you can see, it essentially moved it back a little bit for me. Just like so. The other option, again, like I said, is the ability to create dependencies by clicking open an item, selecting the scheduling down here, and then adding your predecessors or successors here. Let's take a look at what a project looks like on the fixed mode schedule. So this is one of the projects that I currently have as fixed mode, and you're going to notice that they react a little bit differently. So I do have some dependencies created here, of course. Again, I create the dependencies the exact same way by either opening the item and adding a successor here, or simply using that little drag and drop option between the items so I can create a dependency between framing and insulation if I want to really quickly. Now, one of the things that you notice is because this is in a fixed mode schedule, it was not designed to move that task to butt up to this. And again, that is designed. So of course, if you don't want to essentially go through and drag things back, then you can create dependencies in the schedule with that lag time already installed. That way you don't have to go out and kind of keep, adjusting things back or moving things if you need to. But again, one of the caveats to this is that I am able to essentially move dependencies to be however I want them to be. So I can move them just like that. But you'll notice something that happens when we go over working days. So I'll move some stuff back like that. Okay. This is a pretty large schedule that I have here, and everything is kind of hooked together. Now, once I start moving these items that have non-working days and I start kind of moving them over closer, you'll notice that they've kept their dependencies right here. Now let's see what happens when I start to push this one over these non-working days. You'll notice that the dependencies kind of stay the same, but this particular time in between starts to collapse. And then, of course, as you again move them over kind of working days, you'll start to see them branch out a little bit. And then, of course, as any task goes over in non-working days and then back to working days, it's going to shrink down to the original size. But again, you're going to notice a little bit of a difference. Now there's some lag time installed here. That was additional lag time that we didn't automatically install. And then, of course, again, if I start to move things over these non-working days, you're going to start to see this compression. This is what I was talking about when it's not really it's not designed to make all of these recalculations for you. So you will every now and again see this kind of stuff happen where it condenses items. And that's because it's essentially trying to reschedule these items far too many times based on your non-working days. So the fixed mode is a great schedule if you want to just really quickly and easily move items all as one unit. I can really quickly and easily move this entire schedule back to today if I want to. Um, oops, and then of course I can see those dependencies. Again, they're going to stay within the same position until I move them backward. I can remove this to be like that. And then of course I can have that come back and I can move that back. But you'll notice that took a few bits of moving stuff around in order for it to kind of come back into how I had it originally. And again, that has to do with the recalculation that happens during fixed mode, where all of a sudden you'll have these non-working days and now single thing down the line is trying to recalculate based on those non-working days in order to try to control the lag in between the items. So that's why I say I personally like that auto schedule the best, because I have the ability to go through and adjust that type of information via myself. And I feel like that gives me a little bit more control. Whereas with the fixed mode, it's definitely not an issue if you're just really quickly moving a lot of information. But if you have those non-working days, you're just going to want to be careful about the type of information that you're moving around, just because it's going to recalculate it for you here on the schedules. So again, the different types of scheduling modes are going to be fixed, ignore, and auto. Auto is going to work more like a traditional Gantt chart, and then the lag time that you have, you can add or override. Fixed is going to be a little bit more like a lag, or the ability to add lag to tasks that you can drag and drop, so it'll maintain that lag, but it doesn't give you as much control, and you do have to move some things back every now and again if you have larger schedules. And then finally, of course, ignore is going to essentially ignore all of the dependencies that you have created. So it's not going to maintain any space or lag between successors. It essentially allows you to move things on your schedule freely without them being intertwined with anything, which in that case, I probably wouldn't even spend time creating my dependencies on my schedule. I would probably just really quickly and easily go through and adjust information like so. Hopefully that answers some questions that you have about dependencies, how to create them or work with them. But of course, if you have any questions at any point in time, click on that question mark help icon. And as always, happy building.